Lizzie. This video is going to be what I love and hate about Gen Z as a millennial. So everyone's experience is that when Gen Z became adults and started coming into the workforce, everyone started being really negative about Gen Z the same way they were towards millennials when we got into the workforce. And for a while, I kind of agreed with some of the things being said. But then a few years ago, I was hired in a campus ministry job to work with college students. And last year I started a job as a youth minister, so I work with Gen Z almost every single day. And so it makes it really difficult to believe these negative stereotypes about all these people when you know and appreciate and respect and are actually friends with them. One of the first things I noticed on YouTube that differentiated Gen Z from millennial is that there was a casualness in how they made videos. When millennials were at the height of YouTube, everything was very curated and edited. In YouTube vlogs, women would have a full face of makeup, so many different shots and angles and B-roll, editing the visuals. It was just a lot of effort was put into it. And then when Gen Z creators started becoming really popular, it almost looked lazy to me. There was barely any editing, not different angles, not as much B-roll, barely wearing makeup. It was just a casualness to it. I personally don't like the casualness of YouTube videos like that. I think it's so much fun putting a ton of effort into editing it. And this casualness I've noticed seeps into how they dress, how they text, how they talk. The entire app TikTok, so much of it has a casualness with shooting a video in your car or doing a story time video as you're doing your makeup while getting ready for the day. And on TikTok, Reels, and YouTube, the way a video will start and you'll be really close to the camera and act like you're just turning the camera on before you start filming, whereas before it's like you have your shot set up before you start to film. So all of that casualness is something that I really noticed in Gen Z. So let's talk mental health. Gen Z has become so accepting of mental illness. They talk about it so much more. It's not something you have to be ashamed of and not talk about it. It's actually cool to have a mental illness, which is a huge change from when I was diagnosed in college. I was initially so scared to talk to people about it, and a lot of people didn't know what it was. A lot of people make fun of Gen Z for talking about how they can't come into work because of their anxiety or they need a mental health day. What I've noticed though is there's such an acceptance of mental illness, but not as much education as there needs to be. For example, people talk about having a panic attack. That's not a panic attack, it's an anxiety attack, which is very different from all the physical manifestations in a panic attack. I've also noticed that the word gaslighting is used way too much. I actually have seen gaslighting before. I'm very educated on it. This was like 7 years before gaslighting became trendy. I knew what it was and had experienced it, but people use it all the time in a way that it shouldn't be used. A lot of people are like, my roommate disagreed with me yesterday. She's gaslighting me. They'll just use the word gaslighting in so many contexts, and then it kind of like diminishes the meaning of what it is, and they're just not educated as much as they should be on the definitions. And so it's just this acceptance of mental illness, which is really, really good, but then there needs to be more education and kind of like going deeper. The effect of this is a lot of people who are older generations, they think that Gen Z is making it up, and they think that it's kind of gone too far. People are being misdiagnosed. It can't be real that this many people have mental illnesses. But I think that it's just the first generation where people are so open with disclosing it. And so I think of Millennial and Gen X and Boomer, I think there are similar levels of mental illness in the older generations. They just didn't feel comfortable going to get a diagnosis or didn't feel comfortable talking about it. But I also think that because Gen Z grew up with technology, bullying at school took place once they were home through their phones. And also, school shootings have really affected people. And this was intensified because of the COVID pandemic, because a lot of Gen Z, the majority of the time that they were in high school or college, their schools were shut down. They were doing things virtual. If they were in person, they couldn't interact with each other as much as they wanted to. And so I think that, especially for younger brains, that's going to have a lot of long-term effects. And part of that is with mental health. And also a lot of Gen Z have grown up online. There's a lot of YouTube vlogging families, and also on Instagram and TikTok, People are showing their kids in their videos. Even if it's not videos, it is a lot of photos or sharing stories about them. And so there's just so much exposure, and I think it's really stressful for kids growing up to be put online. So I think that there are more things, more stressors in life that Gen Z experienced growing up that causes mental illness coming out more and coming out sooner. Also, it's so trendy to talk about going to therapy. When I was in high school and college, it was like a bad thing to be going to therapy. You didn't want to talk about it. If your parents wanted you to go, you saw it as a really negative thing. But now, everyone feels free to talk about, oh, my therapist said this, I was telling my therapist this. Therapy has just become a normal, fun thing to do. Everyone feels free to talk about it, and it's because there's such an acceptance of talking about mental health. And this has spilled over into TikTok because it is an emotionally vulnerable app. People are so vulnerable talking about the hardest part of their lives, how much they've been hurt, trauma they've gone through, mental illness. People are just so open in talking about it. And when I was growing up as a millennial on YouTube, it really wasn't like that. But Gen Z's running TikTok, and they've encouraged everyone else who is older to also be super vulnerable. Also, the rise of emotional support animals. A lot of people are taking that too far. People are not taking seriously service animals because so many people are making their animal an emotional support animal when really they don't have something like PTSD or a severe anxiety disorder. And then the effect is that a lot of people don't take seriously those with severe mental illness because so many other people are like, oh, I want my emotional support dog or cat. Going along with being open about mental illness, I've also noticed that people are very open about all emotions, including after a breakup. So what I've noticed on TikTok is people love to talk about their ex and not getting over an ex and how toxic that person was and the trauma they experienced. When I was a teenager and in college, if you broke up with someone after like a few weeks, if you kept talking about it, your friends would be like, stop talking about him, move on, stop thinking about him. It was this attitude of not lingering too much on those feelings. And I think sometimes that was invalidating to people where they kind of needed to heal more, and it might have helped to talk about it. But on TikTok, Gen Z is brutal. They'll show the face of their ex in the video and talk about how terrible the person is. And for me, when I had experiences of exes in college, I was really careful to not say anything negative about the person to respect them. And Gen Z doesn't care. Like, they're totally for exposing a terrible person. But I think sometimes it does get too far. A new phenomena, basically, where people are openly posting photos of someone who's hurt them or just an ex who they didn't get along with. An example of this in a song. So this is Kelsey Ballerini in 2015, which is when I was in college. So she sings in her song Stiletto. So this is talking about after a breakup. I wear my pain like stilettos. As bad as it may hurt, no, you'll never know. I keep walking with my head up, putting on a show, and fronting like nothing is wrong. Talk the talk like I'm a tough girl, 'cause there ain't room for weakness in a rough world. Yeah, when you get burned, you learn to be strong. I wear my pain like stilettos. So then a Gen Z singer, Billie Eilish, writes in Happier Than Ever, you ruined everything good. Always said you were misunderstood. Made all my moments your own. Just leave me alone. Here's what Olivia Rodrigo said. Good for you. You look happy and healthy. Not me, if you ever cared to ask. Good for you. You're doing great out there without me, like a sociopath. Olivia Rodrigo is an amazing example because she basically wrote an entire breakup album. Like, the vast majority of the songs were about a breakup. And when we're thinking of Taylor Swift, who's a millennial, she had albums with breakup songs on it, but there were also romantic songs about love and also about friendship and work and politics. Olivia Rodrigo is just breakup album, and it's extremely popular to put out this piece of art just about your ex. A negative about growing up with technology is that because of so much screen time growing up, their attention span is lower. Also, I've noticed that Gen Z is not as good at committing to things as millennials were, and also they can be more flaky. I'm so happy with the way that Gen Z views clothes. Gen Z actually wears loose and modest clothing, and not everyone. They'll have days where they wear really loose, modest clothes, other days where their nipples are showing through their shirt, and so I'm not saying that Gen Z dresses more modestly than millennial, but I have noticed that it's cool to dress like that. Like Billie Eilish is a really good example where she got really famous by wearing really loose, modest clothes, and she wasn't having to show off her body to become famous. Whereas the millennial stars, they had to dress very sexy. It was kind of necessary to become a famous singer or a famous YouTuber. You had to dress in a very sexy way. And what I've noticed about Gen Z is it's almost like they have a choice. When I was growing up, it was this vibe of like, you have to wear tight clothes, you have to wear revealing clothes, and Gen Z doesn't care as much about that. They're totally comfortable wearing what they want to wear. Obviously, you always have the choice, but there was just so much pressure when I was growing up to dress that way, and Gen Z don't have that pressure. It's like they have more of a choice. And the casualness goes too far in the other extreme sometimes, where they're totally fine not wearing bras because it's more comfortable not wearing bras, but then instead they have like their nipples showing through their shirts. So just kind of like extreme immodesty, but also extreme modesty. As a Catholic who wants to dress modestly, it's so amazing having all these modest options at stores. Like never in my life has it been easy to find clothes that are modest and cover you up and looser. It's easier to find clothes that I want to wear. The casualness goes into makeup too, where Gen Z a lot of times don't wear any makeup. Or if they do, it is a lot of times the no makeup look. Contouring is also really popular, but the whole point of it is to make it look like you're not wearing makeup and just kind of changing the bone structure of your face. I absolutely love doing makeup so much, especially eyeshadow. I love doing sparkly and bright colors and contouring it. And I was really into fake lashes for a long time, so I noticed that at my jobs with Gen Z, most of the women never wear makeup ever, and I'm like the only one who is. Because this is such a vibe of being casual and not having to be done up, a lot of times I don't wear makeup when I'm going out of the house and running errands. A lot of times I'll put like a tiny amount on, or I'll only do my makeup if I'm filming. So it's just like what I was saying with the clothes, where you can wear really loose, modest clothes or like really revealing stuff. It's like you have the choice to do it. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!